Hey everyone, before we get into this story, let me just say this one's different. It's a summer memory I'll never forget. The kind that starts out normal, then takes a turn you'll never see coming. So stick around till the end. Every detail matters. And if this kind of story keeps you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe for more. Alright, let's go back to that hot July afternoon. It was a hot Saturday afternoon last July, the kind of heat that made the asphalt shimmer and the air feel thick like swimming through honey. I was 14 at the time, tall enough to dunk a basketball if I jumped just right, though I rarely did. I live out in the rural part of Pennsylvania, far enough from the town that the nearest neighbor is a quarter-mile away, tucked behind a hill and a cluster of trees. My backyard stretches for acres, rolling grass that ends in a dense tree line, and at the far edge, an old storage shed, battered by weather, leaning slightly like it had secrets it wanted to keep. Summers were made for that yard. My friends and I would spend nearly every day out there, running barefoot through the grass, climbing trees, or shooting hoops on the basketball net my dad had bolted to the garage years ago. That particular afternoon, the heat pressed down on us as if it were part of the game itself. Ryan, Josh, Adam, and I had been playing for nearly an hour, each of us sweating through our shirts and gulping down water like it might save us from melting entirely. We collapsed into the grass after one last shot that hit the rim and bounced away, laughing and panting. I could feel the sweat dripping down my back and the prickling sunburn starting across my shoulders. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed someone walking up from the dirt road that winds past my property. He was a kid, probably 16, taller than any of us, with messy black hair that fell across his forehead. His gray t-shirt clung to him in the heat, and his jeans looked like he hadn't thought twice about wearing them today. We all froze. None of us recognized him. None of us had ever seen him before, yet he walked straight toward us, moving like he belonged there. "Hey," he said, voice easy, confident. "Want to even the teams out? Make it 3-on-3? We all exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Adam, ever the cautious one, asked, "Who are you?" "Keith," he said. "I lived just up the road. Was walking through the woods and saw you guys." I felt my stomach knot. Up the road? I'd lived here all my life, and there was no Keith I'd ever heard of. But he didn't seem threatening. In fact, he smiled, like this was just another summer day. Josh shrugged. "Want to play basketball?" Keith shook his head. "Nah, Manhunt. Your yard's perfect for it. Tons of spots to hide." I blinked at him. "How do you know that?" Keith's grin widened. "Just intuition." We laughed it off, though in hindsight, that should have set off every alarm bell in my head. But that day, it just sounded like he was confident and maybe a little mysterious, a challenge. Really, we agreed, splitting into teams. Keith immediately volunteered to be a hunter, claiming he loved the thrill of seeking. Adam kicked a soccer ball across the yard, signaling the start. The hunters covered their eyes and began counting, and we scattered. Ryan sprinted toward the tree line. Ben ducked behind the side of the garage, and I hesitated, my eyes drawn to the old storage shed. The smell of gasoline and rotting wood hit me as I pushed the door open. It was dim inside, musty, but perfect for hiding. I spotted a pile of folded tarps in the corner and crawled under one, lying completely still. 10 minutes passed. Maybe 15. I could hear the faint thump of footsteps outside and the wind rustling through the trees, but nobody came inside. I started to think the hunters had given up, or maybe they just didn't know where I went. Then the shed door creaked open. In one smooth motion, the tarp was ripped off me. I looked up. Adam was smiling. like we had just shared some private joke. We walked back to the patio together, laughing and dripping sweat, but I couldn't shake the unease that had started to creep in. Ben came back minutes later, caught in the act, and eventually, Adam and Josh returned as well. We all stood around, drinking water, trying to ignore the small, gnawing feeling that something was off. Keith was nowhere to be seen. Where'd he go? Josh asked, genuinely confused. Nobody knew. 10 minutes passed, then 20, and still no sign of him. Adam shrugged. Maybe he's just some weird kid. Left, we agreed, though part of me couldn't shake the thought that he hadn't just left. Something about him felt deliberate. When the rest of my friends left at sunset, I went inside. That's when I noticed it. A piece of rope, frayed and weathered, lying on the grass near my bedroom window. I knew it hadn't been there earlier. My first thought was Keith. My mind ran through possibilities, each one more unsettling than the last. I tossed the rope aside, but it kept echoing in my thoughts. A quiet reminder that maybe this stranger wasn't gone at all. That night, sleep felt impossible. Even after the lights were off and my dad had gone to bed, my mind refused to quiet down. I kept thinking about that rope on the grass, and more unsettlingly, about Keith. The way he had known to suggest Manhunt, and the way he had moved through our yard like he belonged there. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. Maybe he was just a weird kid, a passing stranger who had wandered in, enjoyed a game, and left. But there was a small, insistent part of my mind that whispered something darker. Around 11, I finally crawled into bed, hoping exhaustion would catch me. My phone rested on the nightstand, and I scrolled mindlessly, half listening to the crickets outside and the faint hum of the refrigerator downstairs. It was then that I heard it. Soft, deliberate footsteps just outside my door. At first, I froze. My dad sometimes got up in the middle of the night, but he always made a sound, a cough, a sigh, the scrape of sheets. These footsteps were quiet, too quiet. Dad? I called out, my voice shaking. Silence. I called again, louder this time. Nothing. My pulse was racing. Every nerve in my body screamed that something was wrong. The footsteps stopped. I could feel them, like the air itself was heavier, as if someone was leaning just outside the door, waiting. I gripped the handle and twisted it. It was locked. My heart hammered against my ribs. Then, the unmistakable sound of the front door opening. The hinge creaked, the door swung, and the slam of it echoed through the house. Someone was inside. I didn't think. I bolted from my room and ran down the hall to my dad's room, shaking him awake. Dad, someone's in the house. I heard the door, please. Groggy but alert in an instant, he swung his legs off the bed, grabbed the shotgun from under his bed, and motioned for me to stay behind him. Stay close. Don't make a sound. We moved through the house, sweeping each room methodically. Closets, underbeds, the basement, the garage, everything was empty. Outside, he shone his flashlight across the yard, every shadow stretching long and sinister in the beam. Nothing. Not a single sign that anyone had been there. We locked every door and window. My dad stayed up with me that night, sitting in the living room with the lights on, shotgun resting across his lap. The sound of the wind outside and the distant hum of cicadas couldn't drown out the feeling of being watched. I barely slept, my eyes darting to every dark corner, every shadow that moved just slightly. The next day, I told my friends about it. They laughed it off at first, probably just a raccoon or the wind, Ryan said. But even they admitted that Keith had seemed off. The way he had barely spoken during the game, the way he had stared at us sometimes, like he was studying each of us for some reason. That night, Exhaustion finally dragged me towards sleep. But around 2 in the morning, a new sound jolted me awake, scratching at my bedroom window. It was slow, deliberate, like someone dragging a stick or a nail across the glass. My breath caught in my throat. I froze, listening. The sound repeated, rhythmic, patient. I wanted to stay under the covers, pretend it wasn't happening. But I couldn't. My body moved on its own as I crept toward the window, careful not to make a sound. The scratching continued, a whisper of movement against the cold glass. I bent the blinds open just a crack. On the other side stood a figure, close enough that I could see the dark outline of his shoulders and head, but not his face. My stomach dropped. Keith. I knew it. My mind raced. What had he been planning? How long had he been watching? I stumbled backwards, screaming for my dad. The lights flipped on downstairs, footsteps pounding as he ran toward me. He grabbed the shotgun instinctively, his voice booming. Get back from the window! The figure at the window didn't move, just disappeared into the shadows of the yard when my dad fired 2 rounds into the air. I swear for a moment, I thought I saw a flash of that black hair, like he was taunting us before vanishing. The rest of the night was a blur. My dad stayed awake with me, moving from room to room, checking locks, shining the flashlight across every inch of the property. I didn't sleep at all. The wind, the rustling trees, even the creak of the house settling sounded like footsteps. I felt trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The following morning, my dad was calmer but grim. That kid? Keith. If he ever comes back, I won't ask twice. He's not welcome anywhere near this house. He tried to lighten it with a half joke, but I could see the seriousness in his eyes. This wasn't paranoia. It was instinct. And it scared me more than anything else that night. As far as I know, Keith never returned. But the rope by my window, the footprints in the dirt, the eerie sense of being watched, they left a mark. I can't shake it, even years later. Sometimes, when I'm outside at night, I feel the same unease, that chill crawling down my spine. And I wonder, what would have happened if I hadn't woken up when I did? The days after that night were strange and quiet in a way that felt heavier than the usual calm of the countryside. My friends tried to joke about it, but there was a subtle unease in our group now. We no longer played basketball for hours, and Manhunt was off the table. Even sitting in the backyard felt different. Every tree, every shadow seemed to whisper possibilities that my 14-year-old mind wasn't ready to confront. I started noticing small things that made my skin crawl. The garden gate sometimes appeared slightly ajar, even though I was certain I had locked it. The wind would rustle the old storage shed, and it sounded eerily like footsteps. Once, I found another piece of rope in the grass. This one frayed and looped like it had been left there intentionally. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it, imagining Keith's smirk as he left it. Sleep didn't come easy. Every night, I checked the locks, windows, and doors multiple times. I even started sleeping with my phone in hand, the flashlight app always ready. The fear wasn't just about someone being in the house. It was the thought that someone had watched us, planned it, and could come back anytime. School didn't help. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see a tall kid with black hair leaning against the lockers, smiling like he knew something I didn't. My friends teased me when I mentioned it, but I could see it in their eyes. They were thinking about Keith too. Ryan admitted he felt like the way Keith had stared at us during the game wasn't the normal. It was more than observing. It was calculating. One afternoon, I decided to walk along the dirt road near my house, trying to see if I could spot anything familiar. Maybe a sign of him. Maybe a clue about who he really was. The road stretched endlessly, flanked by tall weeds and sporadic trees. I walked slowly, ears straining for any unusual sound. That is when I noticed something carved into the bark of a tree near the woods. K. Just a single letter. My stomach twisted. Was it a coincidence? Or had Keith been here before, marking his territory, letting me know he knew the land? By now, the backyard, once a place of carefree summer fun, felt like a maze of danger. I avoided the storage shed entirely, walking a wide path around it. Every shadow in the yard at night seemed alive, every gust of wind like the soft brush of a hand against my skin. I tried telling myself I was imagining things, but deep down, I knew better. Then came the night of the second encounter. It wasn't like the first, the scratching at the window, the sudden adrenaline spike, but more subtle, creeping. I woke up to the sound of whispers outside, low and almost indistinguishable, like someone muttering my name or something that sounded like it. I couldn't see anything at first. My room was dark except for the pale glow of the moon. I grabbed the baseball bat from under my bed, hard hammering, and slowly inched toward the window. That's when I noticed a shadow shifting near the side of the house. It was quick, darting behind the garage, and I caught just a glimpse of black hair before it disappeared into the night. I called for my dad again, but he was already awake, pacing the living room with the shotgun in hand. The way he looked at me that night, I realized something. I wasn't just scared. He was scared too. Not of ghosts or shadows, but of the idea that someone had been on our property who shouldn't have been. Someone who might come back. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing patterns. Footprints in the mud after a rainstorm, slight scuff marks on the garage floor, small items in the yard moved just slightly from where I remembered placing them. My imagination could have been exaggerating, but every instinct in my body told me it wasn't. My dad put up motion sensor lights and a few cameras around the property. Even with these precautions, the unease lingered. Sometimes, when the lights flicked on at night, there would be nothing there, but I could feel the weight of being watched. The sense that someone was moving just out of sight, studying the patterns of our lives. The rope stayed with me too. I never picked it up again, but I'd see it occasionally in my mind's eye. Frayed, weathered, a reminder of how close he had come. I imagined what he might have planned, and I didn't want to think about it for long, but the fear gnawed at me, a constant shadow over my summer. By the end of July, my friends went home for vacation trips, and I spent more time alone in the yard. That's when I noticed it most. The small signs of intrusion. The way the shed seemed darker, heavier somehow. The way shadows felt wrong. I started sleeping with my bedroom door locked and the baseball bat within reach, even though my dad insisted the house was safe. And then one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the yard glowed gold, I caught sight of something moving at the edge of the tree line. Just a silhouette, barely noticeable, but unmistakable. I froze, holding my breath. The figure didn't move like a normal person. It lingered, watching, just beyond the trees, then vanished as quickly as it appeared. I didn't tell anyone. My friends were gone, and my dad would just tell me to stop imagining things. But I knew it was him, Keith, or someone like him. And even though I never saw him again, the feeling of being watched never fully left me. The rest of that summer blurred into a strange, uneasy routine. The days were still hot, still perfect for playing outside, but the joy we had always felt in the backyard was gone. I found myself pacing the yard at sunset, checking the doors, scanning the tree line, even glancing at the old storage shed with suspicion. I remember one evening in particular. The sky was painted in streaks of pink and gold, the kind of sunset that usually made everything feel peaceful. I should have been outside enjoying it, but I couldn't. My eyes kept drifting toward the far corner of the yard, toward the trees, toward the shed. And there, just at the edge of my vision, I thought I saw movement. I froze, my heart hammering. For a moment, I convinced myself it was just a shadow, a trick of the light, but then I saw it again. A figure, barely distinguishable against the darkening foliage, crouched low as if watching me. My stomach dropped. The black hair, the posture. It had to be him. I ran inside, slamming the door behind me, and didn't stop until I was in my room, locking the door and sitting against it, my knees to my chest. My dad, hearing the pounding of my footsteps, came running with the shotgun. It's okay, I stammered, trying to catch my breath. He's out there. I think he's back. My dad's face darkened. He was calm, but there was a storm behind his eyes. He said nothing for a moment, then grabbed the flashlight and motioned for me to follow. Stay close. Don't stray. We'll check. We walked the perimeter of the yard slowly. Every shadow seemed to twitch and stretch like something alive. The shed loomed over us, silent and foreboding. The grass was soft underfoot, but each step made me tense, waiting for movement. Nothing. Not a sound. Not a trace. After checking every inch of the yard and making sure all the doors and windows were locked, my dad finally turned to me. If he comes back, we'll deal with him. No more games, no more wondering. His tone was final, but the fear in my chest didn't go away. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I stayed in the living room with the lights on, listening to the wind outside, imagining every shadow moving like a person. Imagining Keith, or someone like him, watching from the darkness. The rope, the footprints, the strange presence. It had left a mark on me that didn't fade. Weeks passed. School started again, and life slowly returned to something that resembled normal. My friends came back and we played basketball, but always during the day, always in pairs, never alone. Manhunt was never mentioned again. The backyard felt different. I could never enjoy it the way I used to. The sense of safety, the carefree laughter, it was gone. Years later, I can still feel it. When I go outside at night, even now, I sometimes glance toward the woods, toward the shed, half expecting to see a shadow, half expecting to see him. I think about that rope lying near my window, and I wonder what he had intended. I've learned to live with it, to push the fear to the back of my mind, but it never fully leaves. Every rustling tree, every creak of the house, every shadow at the edge of my vision brings it back. Keith was gone, but the memory of him, the possibility of him, it lingers, a constant reminder that some dangers aren't obvious and some strangers aren't just passing through. The last thing I want to say is this. I never found out exactly who Keith was, where he came from, or why he chose my backyard. But I know one thing. He taught me that even in the places you feel safest, even in your own home, there can be someone watching, waiting, planning. And sometimes, all it takes is a rope, a shadow, a single glance to make you realize that the world isn't as safe as it seems. That summer changed me. Not in the usual way, with campfires and laughter or scraped knees and ice cream. It changed me in the way that fear does. It lingers. It teaches you to notice the little things, the subtle signs, the silence in the wind. And sometimes, when I step outside at night and hear a distant branch snap, I still catch myself glancing toward the woods, heart hammering, wondering if he's still out there, watching, waiting.